Okay, so what we've been talking about in the previous videos have been power rules. Now, power rules make our lives easier when we're trying to find the derivative, which is the slope of the tangent at any x value. Now, we've been doing power rules to determine the derivative for a power function. In today's lesson, what we're going to be doing is finding the derivative of what's called a product function. So if you can make a function, let's call this function p of x, okay, such that it's a product of two other functions, then its derivative is very simple. You take the derivative of the first guy, okay, in this case it's f of x, multiply it by the original of the second guy. So this is a derivative, and this is the original. Okay, when it doesn't have a prime, it means it's a derivative. When it does have a prime, it's a derivative. When it doesn't, it's the original function. So, and then you add the original of the other function multiplied by the derivative. So you swap derivatives and you add. Okay, and that's it. That's basically how you apply the product rule. You could also apply that to three terms. So if you have a function y that is a product of three other functions, then it's very simple. You go u prime vw, so you only apply the derivative to u, then you add on and you switch letters. So you go u is normal, v is the one undergoing the derivative, and w is normal. And last combo is u and v are both normal, but w is primed. So that's basically how you would take the derivative. Let's see this in action, guys. Okay, now I want you to remember one thing. When you take the derivative of a constant multiple, that multiple can be left on its own on the side. Apply the derivative to the letter components first. That constant multiple will be tacked on at the end. Okay, so let's do this. Negative 0.4, and let's apply the product rule on the inside. So I'm going to take the derivative of the first guy. So if I apply the power rule on x squared minus 3x, I end up getting 2x minus 3. And I want you to keep x to the 5 plus 2 the exact same. Then add x squared minus 3x and apply the power rule to the second bracket this time. You get 5x to the 4. Okay, now if this is too confusing, what you can do is you can do this in steps. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to call this guy, say, u. I'm going to call this guy v. I'm going to call this guy w. Okay? Now I'm going to apply this rule right here. Okay? So let's do u prime. U prime is 0. Okay, when you take the derivative of a constant, it's 0. What about v prime? That is 2x minus 3. And w prime is 5x to the 4. And I've applied the power rule essentially, right? So all I have to do is apply the product rule and just multiply these things together. Now in the first term I've got u prime, but u prime is equal to 0. So that term doesn't exist. So we move on and we go with u, v prime, w, and I just tack them on together. So we go u, v prime, and w. Add on, and I go u, v, w prime. U is negative 0.4, v is equal to x squared minus 3x, and w prime is 5x to the 4. And that's where I got this from. It's just basically applying this rule. So now what we have to do is we have to do FOIL. Before I do that, I'm going to factor out a common factor of negative 0.4. So I factored it out here, okay? So I'm going to do FOIL. Let's do this. So 2x to the 6 plus 4x minus 3x to the 5 minus 6. And then it's just a straight distributive property. So you go 5x to the 6 minus 15x to the 5. And now what I have to do is I have to collect like terms. So I've got, let's see, 2x to the 6 plus 5x to the 6. I get 7x to the 6. I've got negative 3x to the 5 minus 15x to the 5 is negative 18x to the 5. The other like terms are, actually there are none, so 4x minus 6. There you go. And so I've got the derivative when x equals 1/2. Now, I don't actually have to expand or distribute this negative 0.4 inside the bracket. I could just plug in 1/2 if I'd like, and then at the end distribute negative 0.4 to get the exact value of the slope. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And try to see what I get over here. And determine the slope that way. So let's see. 1 over 2 to the power of 6 is 1 over 64. 1 over 2 to the power of 5 is 1 over 32. This is 4 over 2 minus 6. Once you figure out the common denominator, then you can distribute negative 0.4 in, and then you end up getting a value for the slope. But basically, that is how you apply the power rule. It's essentially the same thing you've been doing in the past. For the product rule, excuse me. So you apply the product rule, but first you need to individually figure out what u prime, v prime, and w prime are, and then just plug them into this formula right there. And that's it. Bingo. That is the product rule, and it includes a little bit of power rule too. Alright guys, peace out.